Yes, Your Honor. Well, I anticipate today an expert witness coming forward, and we're not anticipating objecting to his qualifications in the field that he's seeking to be certified in. However, we do anticipate probably mounting an objection as to him being able to render some of his conclusions and his opinions as a result of what he's certified in. So I think maybe we could do that outside the presence of the jury.
I think I know what some of your questions are going to be. I've been down the road before. The qualifications, when we render an opinion, when you qualify him, he's entitled to render an opinion. The extent and the breadth of that opinion is limited to his qualifications. And therein lies where they would be challenged. And it would be challengeable only if he testifies to something that you think is beyond his expertise. Then I would excuse the jury, would be happy to hear, go into how, for him to establish the necessary foundation for why that, for instance, peer review, all the scientific aspects of it, all of those aspects, I think there are 4 specific things that I'm required. Yes. So I've already made a determination that the essence of his, and we could have that relied upon. You've got the record of it. I mean, we had a hearing specifically in this case where there was testimony taken, so that stands as far as I'm concerned from the standpoint of the science itself, of looking at lights, being able to look at vehicles and really analyze videography, from the standpoint, looking at a film and breaking it down. But the extent, for instance, I don't know that he's going to do that. I think my statement was at that time, and you made it in your open statement, and I remember that my reaction was similar to yours, that it's the same as fingerprints. I don't think that's scientific. Now, I said, when I read his report, he said, in my experience, I've never seen lights that differ. That's totally different. That's not saying he's not saying categorically there's no such thing as any light. He's saying in his personal experiences, he's entitled to do. And there's a distinction there as far as I'm concerned. But that's just an example of it, Frechette. From the standpoint of him testifying as an expert, if you want me to revisit that, and maybe there's some issue that I didn't address earlier, and I'll be happy to do that, but I think he's qualified to testify, but that doesn't open the door. Let me give you an example. Thank God we had these K. Watson and his progeny, because before we couldn't do that, as you recall, the basis was we would charge the jury that that's not for the jury as to whether they're qualified to render that opinion based on their experience they testified to. If it's a jury issue. And then finally, we moved to Dalton. And the federal courts had it for a long time, and I'm glad we finally got there. Because I was trying a case after Watson in Berkeley, it was an automobile accident case, and a chiropractor was testifying, treating him. And he testified to what he'd done about getting mobility back into whatever part of the body. I don't know whether it was a shoulder or what, but anyway, he also had potential head injury. And the lawyer wanted to ask him about qualification to testify about brain damage. And I said, well, he's been qualified as a chiropractor. Now, you've got to get a lot more to do before he can start testifying about brain damage. So that's what I'm saying. Within the realm of his qualification, I don't know what the opinion to be, but I'll be happy to entertain an objection at that point.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that clarified?
Sure. We're ready.
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's bring it out here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I hope you had a restful evening, and we all said thank goodness it's Friday, and we look forward to our reprieve here and break, and I know you're looking forward to that mental rest. It's so important. But before we start our last day of the week, we'll ask you again that each of you solemnly swear or affirm that you have in every respect honor the court's instructions by not talking with with anyone, not allowing anybody to talk with you, not reading anything, watching anything, or doing any independent research concerning this case. If you have done that and you wish and you could make that commitment, does every juror say, I do? Anybody unable to do that, please raise your right hand. Thank you again, and appreciate your patience with me for doing that. That is so imperative and so important to the integrity of this process that we do that. So thank you tremendously. All right, Solicitor, good morning. You may call your first witness this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Judge. At this time, we call Jeremy Leach.
Leach?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, if you'll scoot up, speak into the microphone, state your full name and spell your last name.
Jeremy Leach, L-E-A-C-H.
And if you don't mind, I know you got your uniform on, but tell this jury where you're employed.
I'm employed with the South Carolina Highway Patrol
And how long have you been employed there?
since 2000, 19 years.
Okay. And what kind of training have you undergone with the Highway Patrol from the beginning all the way until now?
I'm a member of the MATE unit with the Highway Patrol. We're the Collision Reconstruction and Investigative Division of the Highway Patrol. So we've gone through I've started at basic training. I initially started with the City of Hartsville Police Department prior to joining the Highway Patrol. There I started with collision reconstruction classes in addition to the basic training. In 2000, I was employed with the Highway Patrol, repeated the Highway Patrol's portion of the basic training, and then again started additional collision reconstruction classes, investigation classes, that sort of thing.
Okay. And what are your current responsibilities?
I am the lieutenant within the unit, responsible essentially for the state. As far as the MATE unit itself, we handle the more serious, more severe collisions, investigations that are investigated by the Highway Patrol. We also assist outside law enforcement agencies with different types of cases as needed, just because we're a state agency and we have a little bit more resources than some of the other police departments have.
Okay. And I hate to even ask, but what does MATE stand for? I should know that.
It's Multidisciplinary Accident Investigation Team.
Okay. And what were your responsibilities back in 2014, January, February of 2014?
In 2014, I was responsible for the MATE unit in the PD region, which is the 8 counties in the northeast region of the state. Central location, the office for that is out of Florence, but we handle everything from Darlington and Marlboro to Orion, Georgetown, Williamsburg. We cover all of those 8 counties.
Okay. Now, did you happen to assist us with this current case with Heather Elvis and Sidney Moore?
Yes.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury what you did.
In, I think, January of 2014, the Horry County Police Department contacted me, said they were investigating a case, missing persons case. They had some surveillance video from a couple different locations, and they were trying to identify a vehicle that was captured on that surveillance to see if they could, if they wanted to see if we could determine what kind of vehicle that was.
Now, if you don't mind, before you get too ahead of me, because I'm making little notes. In your everyday as a highway patrolman, tell this jury a little bit why they would be calling you trying to figure out what kind of vehicle it is.
It's actually something we deal with quite a bit with our hit and runs, and we deal with video now. I mean, there's surveillance video everywhere, so we're using video to calculate speeds of vehicles involved in crashes, identify vehicles in hit and runs, vehicles that leave the scene. So it's something that we do quite frequently as just part of our collision reconstruction.
Okay. And like, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, with a hit and run, there would be a video of the vehicle. And then you would decipher the type of vehicle, the color, and that way you would then know who you're looking for, or at least the vehicle you're looking for.
Correct. We may, depending on the type of hit and run case, it may be video from before the collision scene, or it may be video from after the collision occurred, and we'll take that video and we'll look at the characteristics of the vehicle, figure out as much as we can determine off of that video what we're looking for, and it helps us to generate a suspect vehicle standard, something that we're looking for, that we can tell our road troopers, hey, we believe this vehicle involved in this is whatever it may be in that particular. Correct.
Or a Toyota Corolla.
Correct.
Okay. Now tell this crowd what you did to help them in January.
We looked at the videos that we were supplied and just looked at the characteristics of the vehicles as it traveled through the different locations. We were able to, from that, give them an idea of what we believe the vehicle was based off some of the characteristics that we observed in the video. For example, the headlight of the pickup truck.
I think we're getting into testimony. It probably requires an expert opinion.
He's not giving his opinion, Your Honor. He's just telling.
At this point, I hadn't heard him say other than say some of the things he looks at, is what I understand. So I would be objection at this point, but I'm just review if necessary.
For example, the headlight that we see on the vehicle as it travels through the location, at this point, it matched many of our mate pickup trucks. It was a very distinctive L-shaped.
What's the basis of objection?
Same thing. He's drawing a conclusion for which he's not been established his expertise to be able to.
All these say, subject to objection, I'll allow him to testify it matches a pickup truck. I'm not saying what kind of pickup truck or anything else other than it matches a pickup truck. So I would allow that based on his experience and his training and working in what he does.
Thank you.
Thank you, overruled.
So the headlight, the shape that we observed in the video is very similar to that of our mate pickup trucks at that point. So different characteristics like that helped us to identify a specific year, make, model, range that we were able to give to the Horry County Police Department and say, this is what we believe the vehicle was, or this is the range of vehicles that you should be looking for.
Okay. And at this time, it's very preliminary in the investigation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to give them what you believe when you saw it, some of the characteristics?
Yes.
And could you determine, just by looking at it with your experience as a highway patrolman and with mate investigation, were you able to determine if it was a truck or a vehicle?
We believed it was a pickup truck, yes.
Okay. And what, if anything else, can you testify that, look, when I looked at this vehicle, with my experience with mate and with the highway patrol, this is what I believe I saw?
Objection. Same basis.
Well, the question is, what did he see? What did he look? What overruled the objection? As long as it's confined to what he saw.
We observed the vehicle had very, very bright headlights compared to the other vehicles that were in the video. The pickup truck appeared to have a chrome toolbox in the bed of the pickup truck as well. It was dark in color.
And that's basically what you gave to the police department?
Yes.
It's a dark and colored pickup truck with a toolbox?
Correct.
Okay. Now, did you stop there, or did you continue on with the investigation trying to figure out more about the details of the truck?
No, we continued.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury what else you did. No, hold on, before I ask, I'm sorry. At that time in January, you didn't actually have a truck to compare it to, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what did you do next?
In February of 2014, we were again contacted by the Horry County Police Department. They had seized a vehicle from a suspect in the case, and they asked us if there was anything that we needed with the vehicle to aid in what we had done prior, or anything we could do further with it. I said, well, discussed it with them. I said, well, if we can actually drive that actual vehicle through the surveillance locations where the video captured it the first time, that video can be used to compare to the video that was captured on the original night of the case that they were investigating, on the original night of the disappearance. So we, pursuant to a search warrant, were able to take that exact vehicle and drive it through the 2 locations that it was captured on video and record that actual vehicle driving through those locations.
Okay, so at that time, just so I'm clear, you took what I guess we know as a known vehicle, it belonged to the Moores.
Correct.
And you drove it through?
Yes.
The same cameras, the same thing that went on December 18th?
Correct.
And you were using that to compare to, at the time, the question vehicle, the one we were trying to figure out what is this vehicle and who does it belong to?
Correct.
Okay. Now, tell this jury, before you did the recreation, did you do it in similar lighting? Tell me about that. How exact was the recreation?
Yes, we tried to make sure that the street lights were the same. It was close to a full moon on the original night. We tried to get it as close to that as possible when we did ours. On the very first, the home security video, they have a motion sensor light that comes on occasionally. When we would drive that pickup truck through, it was big enough, it would set that motion light off. Other vehicles, it wouldn't set it off with. So we would wait until that motion light turned back off again, and then drive the vehicle through again and let it turn the motion light on as it did in the original video. We tried to make it as consistent and accurate as possible.
Okay, I understand. And did you also drive it down Mill Pine?
Yes.
Okay. Now, prior to driving that vehicle, and you did this when in February?
February 24th, I believe.
Okay. Now, prior to doing this, did you alter anything on the defendant's truck before you drove it through for the recreation?
No.
Okay. Did you ever remove a headlight, touch a headlight, even lift the hood and mess with anything inside?
No.
All you did was kind of walk around it and then do the recreation?
Correct.
Okay. Now, after you did the recreation, did you help us at a later date?
Yes.
Tell this jury how you helped us at a later date after you did the recreation.
After that, those set of videos were collected, was again contacted, and Grant Frederickson was coming in and was going to do a similar reenactment or recreation with some vehicles and those videos. We were able to shut down the roadways in both of those locations and assist with moving different vehicles within that. Similar vehicles with similar characteristics that were used as a test, move those through those locations as well to capture their images on the video so that those vehicles could be compared to the original suspect video.
Okay, and was that also done again at the same location on 814 and the same location on Mill Pine?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now, did you give that recreation to our office and after it was completed?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know whether or not Grant used that recreation?
I believe he did, yes.
Okay. No further questions for this particular witness, Judge?
Well, the question is,
First of all,
sir, take your time.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Leach, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, briefly for the benefit of the jury, you mentioned you were part of the MATE team, correct?
Correct.
All right, and the MATE team, for their benefit, they do a number of different things, correct?
Yes.
That's a division of SLED, right?
No.
I'm sorry, that's not a division slip?
No, it's not.
Okay, no, but on the mate team, you commonly analyze, for example, what we call accident reconstruction, correct? For example, that'll be if there was some type of accident, you'll look at skid marks and take measurements and try to determine maybe how fast somebody was going.
Correct.
That's one of the things. Then you also, I think your testimony was that you started analyzing the various images that you could compile to try to see what you could gather from those images. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now let me ask you this. I think you said you first reviewed the video in, was that late January of 2014?
Yes.
And at that point, you couldn't make out the make or model of the vehicle, correct?
In January,
What I'm looking for is your first review of the video. You couldn't determine a make or model of the video.
yes, we could.
You could at that point?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that was based on a visual observation?
Yes.
Just by looking at the video?
Yes.
Okay. But then you couldn't tell that it was necessarily any particular vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
You couldn't determine it to the exclusion of any other vehicles of similar make or model, correct?
We couldn't say it was this particular vehicle. We could say it was this type, year range model of vehicle. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Now, you then went and took another test on, I think it was, did you say February 24th or February 4th?
24th, I believe.
February 24th, okay. So that was after the arrest of Mr. Moore, correct?
Yes.
And you conducted a more thorough investigation or analysis of this video you had, correct?
Yes.
And still, at that point, you were not able to conclude that it was any one particular Ford F-150 to the exclusion of any others, correct?
Correct.
And again, on the video, there's no identifying attributes such as a license plate or tag or anything like that, correct?
No, we were able to identify a vehicle with specific characteristics, year, make, model, range, chrome toolbox, that sort of thing. Not this vehicle with this license plate.
Correct, that's right. At this point, you're identifying class and characteristics, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, so that's at the February 24th review. Now, at some point, do you recall how much later the experiment with Grant Fredericks was?
I know it was cold, but I don't remember the date.
Would it have been the following winter?
It may have been, yes.
Okay, so about, say, maybe between 9 months and a year later, sound accurate to you?
I really don't know for sure what the date was. I'd hate to guess.
And I'm not asking for an exact date, but would it be safe to...
He can't answer, because he said he doesn't know. So
Okay, I
go with
understand.
something else.
All right. Now, one moment.
Sure.
Nothing further for the switch, Sean.
Very well. Read the rag.
No, sir, Your Honor.
Thank you. They step down and
Thank you.
witness the piece. You.
Yes, please, Your
Any
Honor.
objections?
Okay.
You're also free to leave. Thank you so much. Call your next witness, please.
Thank you. At this time, we call Grant Fredericks. Thank you, Mr. Beech.
Set your laptop right here. Please raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Speaking to the microphone, state your full name and spell your last name.
Yes, my name is Grant Fredericks, spelled Fredericks.
If you need to turn it this way a little bit more. Yeah. We'll make sure it's okay for you. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Fredericks, if you don't mind, let's start off by telling this jury the company that you run.
I run a company called Forensic Video Solutions, and it's located in Spokane, Washington.
Okay, and if you don't mind, start off by telling them a little bit about what your company does.
My company has about 5 different functions that we do in the area of the examination of video evidence. One is training. I teach forensic video analysis in various parts of North America primarily, but also in other parts of the world. My forensic examination workflow is split between criminal defense, criminal prosecution, civil plaintiff work, and civil defendant work.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury a little bit about how I originally came across you.
I believe that I was working for a criminal defendant, for the attorney who was representing a criminal defendant, and I was doing the examination of the video in that defense case. And then concurrent, or just sort of after that period, then I was contacted on an unrelated case by the prosecutor's office, and I recall normally I would feel that that might put me in a conflict, so I notified the criminal defense attorney, and he felt that the case was completely unrelated and that it would not be inappropriate for me to also be working for the prosecutor's office at that time.
Okay. So even here in Horry, you've worked for defense attorneys and you've worked for our office.
Yes, and I've worked a few cases for the defense here.
Okay. And would you say overall it was pretty much 50% of the time you're working for defense attorneys, 50% you're working with prosecutors?
We have a model in our office where I have a case manager. My case manager's job, in part, is to keep a balance. So when we get contacted by a potential client, we, number one, look for conflicts to make sure we're not in a conflict of interest. And then secondly, how balanced are we? Are we a little bit heavy at that time doing defense work? In that case, we might not take another defense case. We'll wait until we get more balanced on the prosecution side. And she does a very good job of balancing that, so we kind of even it off.
Okay. And how long have you been testifying as an expert in forensic video analysis?
I've been examining video for over 30 years. I've been testifying throughout Canada, the US, the UK, New Zealand, and other countries, probably for the past 25 years, roughly.
And about how many times have you been qualified as an expert?
Many hundreds of times.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Tell me a little bit about your background.
I have a degree in broadcast television. My emphasis was on television engineering. I worked in television for a few years, became a police officer. I worked with video evidence while I was a street police officer. I also worked major crime, and I was a dog handler. And then eventually I was the head of the forensic video unit of my police agency. At about that time, I began teaching at the FBI National Academy. I've been a contract instructor at the FBI National Academy for the past 17 years. I am a co-author of the national standards for in-car video recording systems for law enforcement, and I consult for companies that are both producing tools for encoding of digital video, both for CCTV, body-worn video, and in-car video. I lecture throughout the country and teach.
That's what I was going to ask you. How long have you been teaching in this field?
I was the lead instructor for an organization called the Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association, which teaches video analysts from both the public and private sector throughout the world. The lead instructor for that organization starting in about 1998 up until about 2014.
Okay, and is there any kind of certification in this field an individual can get?
Yes.
And do you have that certification?
Yes.
And what is your role in that process?
Well, initially, I was the head of the curriculum development for that organization, and then I taught 4 of their primary one-week courses. The courses ranged from just the examination of video, basically, to the recovery, to doing things like photographic video comparison. That involved the reverse projection of historic images over contemporary images to compare objects like vehicles. So I did those 4 primary courses, the curriculum development, and then I was on a few committees to establish standards for video analysis. And I continue to teach for that organization periodically at conferences, and then I do my own teaching.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, I'm going to ask that he be recognized as an expert in forensic video analysis.
Well, do you care to examine his qualifications?
Not as to qualifications on that.
Very well. Forensic,
Thank you, Judge.
what Kelvin specifically means.
Forensic video analysis.
Very well. He will be permitted
Is that
to
correct,
render.
Mr. Fredericks? Is
Yes.
that what you've been qualified in the
Correct.
past for? Okay.
I'll qualify him that he will be permitted to render opinions in the field of forensic video analysis.
Thank you, Judge. No, if you don't mind, forensic video analysis is probably something most jurors and even I am not that familiar with until just recently. Tell this crowd, before we get into my case, what does that entail?
Forensic video analysis is the examination and comparison and evaluation of video, primarily for legal matters. Primarily it entails today the examination of digital video. It was analog up until about around just after 9/11, so 2001, 2002, we began to migrate away from analog video into a more digital realm. And so that affected the training, affected standards. But the examination includes things like photographic video comparisons, looking at how a piece of fabric or clothing would appear on a video system given different lighting conditions, to how the known clothing might appear under different lighting conditions. So when we look at comparison, we look at something that's captured in video, we call that the questioned object. Questioned clothing, questioned individual, or questioned vehicle. And then if something is recovered or seized by police and we want to do a comparison, we call that the known object. And so when we do comparisons, we're looking at comparing questioned to known. All objects will appear slightly differently depending on the light. And because really we're really looking at the reflection of light and the consideration of how digital technology may affect the reliability of the recording. So compression, that's the process of reducing the amount of data required to be stored on the computer to then later play back and replicate as accurately as possible the images. They are subject to all sorts of frailties based on edge pattern because of compression, reflection of light, colors. So I have to consider all of those issues, look at the level of compression, how the compression creates the images before I can even begin to examine the video. The sampling of an image and the colors and the brightness is dependent on the type of compression technology. And so the evaluation of that technology helps me understand the limitations, and then I can evaluate the reliability and the weight that should be applied to that comparison. So that's comparison work. Okay. It involves what's called reverse projection. Okay. It involves what's referred to as headlight spread pattern analysis for the identification of vehicles. Clothing identification often results in an evaluation of infrared issues. So there's quite a bit to it.
That was pretty technical. Let me ask you to make sure I'm clear. You're going to need to bring it 2 steps down probably from me. So basically, if we had an individual that walked in a convenience store and there was a surveillance camera running and he was wearing, a hoodie, jeans, whatever, he robs the convenience store and walks out. would your job as a forensic video analysis be to, from the video, find out the characteristics of the individual and then possibly compare those characteristics to a known individual?
The first process under that circumstance would be to evaluate the recording system and to ensure that the display system, the monitoring and viewing, is compatible to the original recording. For instance, in that scenario, the compression could cause a shirt that has a vertical stripe to appear to have a jagged stripe or jagged design if the video were not recovered correctly, if it were not displayed correctly. So first thing I want to do is understand the technology that was used. Does it accurately represent what it purports to show? And a whole slew of other things. Once that's done, then yes. Then I would, once I'm confident that I can reliably do the examination and that it's fit for the purpose that I've been asked to do the examination, then I would compare the questioned person on video, make observations about what would be reliable. Then I would look at the known photographs, perhaps, of somebody might be in custody and that clothing, then do a comparison.
Okay. Now, in this case, we ask you to compare a known vehicle to the questioned vehicle seen on 814 and Millpine.
Yes.
Now, had you done anything like that before?
Yes.
Okay, and about how many times had you done something like that previously?
Many times in the UK and Canada and throughout the US.
Okay, so that is a big portion of what you do as a forensic video analysis.
It's a common request to examine vehicles, yes.
Okay, and you use the same technique throughout, whether it's a vehicle or an individual or something else. You are looking to ensure the integrity of what's on the video.
The methodology is the same. The process might be different depending on the nature of the recording system and the kind of light that's being evaluated.
Okay. But the methodology is the same.
Yes.
And that is pretty much what you do as a big part in forensic video analysis.
Yes.
Okay, and knowing the video equipment is key to make sure, look, when you look at it, you are indeed viewing the characteristics of what's ever on that video.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when did we contact you and ask you for help?
I believe I was first contacted around October 2014.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury why we contacted you. When you got involved, what was the ultimate goal we were looking for?
Well, the first contact was through my case manager, who informed me about the request. I then contacted the defense attorney, and once it was determined that defense attorney was okay with, there was no conflict, then I made contact with the prosecutor's office, and the question was, we have video of a vehicle, which I refer to as a questioned vehicle. The question was, can it be compared? Can it be contrasted with images of a known vehicle if we provide those to you?
Okay, and at that time, what did you do?
At that time, I did an examination of video images that were provided to me of a questioned vehicle. There were two sets of locations where the vehicle was depicted, and I made observations about the vehicle, including the headlight spread pattern. That's one thing that is quite unique to a vehicle. And if there's enough resolution, if there's enough reliability in the edge pattern, that an examination and an evaluation of the headlight spread pattern can be made, then I may proceed and say this is fit for the purpose of doing that comparison.
Okay, and did you receive from us both the video footage from 814 and Millpine?
Yes.
And did you also receive from us a reenactment that what we call here MATE, South Carolina Highway Patrol, did with the vehicle?
Yes.
And are those things you used to look at as ultimately part of your conclusion?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, I want to go ahead and ask you, before we get into how you reached your conclusion, I want to know, were you able to determine whether or not the known vehicle, which was Sidney Moore's, was indeed a match to the vehicle on the surveillance camera from 814 to Mill Pine?
My objection is that this conclusion goes outside the expertise of the...
Question. That's what you asked him, which is more leading whether it's a match. You can ask him whether you're able to make a determination.
Yeah, that's what I asked him first.
So
but I'm
rephrase
sorry.
your question, please.
I'll ask a
I
couple.
sustain the objection as to on that basis.
Okay.
You asked him, was it a match?
Were you able to make a determination?
I made some observations initially. After a series of pretty extensive testing, I was then able to make a determination.
Okay. And are you prepared today to show us everything you did to ultimately reach what your determination was?
Yes.
Okay, if you don't mind, first tell us what your determination was, and then I would like you to show this jury how you were able to make that determination.
Objection.
You need to establish the basis of it, whether it meets the test first before you render this opinion.
Mr. Fredericks, just briefly tell us, before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty of it, what you did to reach your determination.
The methodology is to compare and contrast all of the features of a questioned object, in this case, vehicle, to a known vehicle. That evaluation and comparison is normally done through what's called reverse projection. It's where we go back to the scene, we project the historic images of the object, car, driving by each of the areas over top of a contemporary view. So we go back to the scene, look through the camera, overlay the old images sort of in a kind of 50-50 view, and then place the known object into the roadway in precisely the same position under the same lighting conditions. We make observations of all of the reflection off of the vehicle. Does the bumper reflect at the same position? Does the headlight, tail light, top of the vehicle, all the reflective features given the available light, like the street lights that would be in the area, do they all reflect exactly the same? So in other words, does the vehicle share all the same class characteristics? By class, I mean shape, size, color, and any other features that might be on the vehicle. That would be the first test. The reflection of the vehicle includes the reflection of the disbursement of the headlight pattern over the roadway. There is significant research, study, and publications establishing that headlight spread pattern is unique from vehicle to vehicle. Vehicles of the same class, make, model, year. There are a lot of reasons why, which we'll probably get into, that establishes that the diffusion of the light, the angle of the headlight on the ground, the height, the reflection off the roadway can be compared to establish uniqueness of a vehicle. That's part of the reverse projection, all of which is just evaluating the reflection of light. And so that is the methodology. That would establish that a vehicle could be the same or cannot be eliminated. It might be the same. The methodology also looks at bringing in other vehicles of the same class and doing that same comparison. Vehicles of the same class, make, model, year, compared to the known vehicle would also have some differences. If they are exactly the same, then the only potential difference would be the headlight spread pattern. Other vehicles that look initially to be this similar in class might be a few inches longer, a little bit taller, would have a few different reflective features on the vehicle because they're slightly different in class. They might be the same make, model, but maybe a different year. They also would employ different headlight technologies. So all of those tests were done in this particular case. I did the examination on 11 other vehicles of similar class or same class compared to the known vehicle. And the result should be that all of the vehicles tested, even if they were of the same class, would have a different pattern on the roadway with their headlights, but may have the same physical features. And the testing showed that even vehicles of the same make, model, and year, their structure appeared the same, but the headlight spread pattern was different. Vehicles from different classes looked different, both from the structure of the vehicles to the headlight spread pattern. And the question would be then, using the drive-by that the investigators did shortly after the vehicle was recovered to the examination of the question vehicle the night of the events, what similarities did they have? So that examination was done, and they were both identical in physical characteristics and reflection off of the vehicle, including unique features that were visible in the back of the vehicle, to the headlight spread pattern. They were all identical. So based on the elimination and the understanding of how vehicles that were the same class and year were different because of headlight spread pattern, and vehicles that were similar but different physically, I was able to then form an opinion.
Okay, and let me ask you this. In your experience, have vehicles with the same make, model, and year all had a different headlight spread pattern?
In all of the examinations that I've done, all the tests that I've written, the studies that I've read, the studies and publications that I've read, and tests from peers, my peers, with enough resolution, no vehicle shares the same headlight spread pattern.
Okay. And in this particular case, you looked at the make, the model, the characteristics, the headlight spread pattern, anything that is particular to this vehicle, maybe like the toolbox, and you found that everything from the known vehicle, which belonged to the Moores, was identical to the vehicle belonging or seen on 814 and Mill Pond.
Yes.
And every vehicle in your experience and from the studies that you've looked at in your field show that every vehicle has a unique headlight spread pattern.
Yes.
And the headlight spread pattern in this case matched on the Moores to the vehicle on 814 and Mill Pond.
Yes.
Okay, and if you don't mind, I want to clarify something before we show the jury kind of everything you did to come to this determination. When you were looking at the vehicle, the question vehicle, we saw the video yesterday. It goes down 814, it goes down Mill Pond. And then Jeremy Leach, you weren't in here, talked about he did the recreation with a known vehicle. And you compared the two. Tell this jury, are you just eyeballing it? Hey, this looks about the same. Tell them what you're doing.
Yes, it certainly goes beyond eyeballing. As I said earlier, the evaluation of the video encoding system to understand what is reliable about it, what we can put weight to as far as is the lighting the same, is the reflections the same, how does the encoding impact the reliability of the pixelization from image to image, and does the pixelization affect the pattern of the reflection on the roadway? Given what's called the pixel format, which is a description of the brightness and color of each pixel, is that fit for the purpose of doing this kind of comparison? So an evaluation of the pixel format. So basically there are a whole series of technical issues that I consider before doing the examination to know what limitations there may be.
Okay, and we're getting ready to look at everything you did to find your determination. correct?
Yes.
And part of that, you've already stated, was running 11 trucks past 814 and past Mill Pond to eliminate that it could be another make or model.
I did the 11 trucks were at 814.
Okay.
And then I relied on the work done by the initial investigator when they did the drive-by.
Okay.
And that was done because when that drive-by was done, the headlights had not been touched. And it was very helpful to have had that drive-by done soon after the vehicle was recovered and before the headlights had been removed and examined.
Okay.
Because that examination in itself, and if they put the headlights back in, would have made it completely different. The headlights would not be replicated when they were put back in.
Okay, now let me ask you this. When we contacted you and asked you to make this determination, would you give us an answer until you had done everything, including coming to Horry County and being at the location of 814 and going through several makes and models, as well as going through Mill Pond? Would you give us any answer until everything had been done?
I didn't, no.
Okay, so you had to do this complete process, which took months before you'd say yes or no.
That was the case. I felt that was necessary. There was also an audit that I did on the movement of vehicles back and forth past 814 to demonstrate, it helped to demonstrate just the uniqueness of the movement of that vehicle in the headlight spread pattern.
Okay, so this was not, so the jury knows, you just sitting in your office looking at a couple videos.
No.
Okay. If you don't mind, show this jury all that was done for you to able to make a final determination. Would you rather sit there, or would you good with that, or you want to move and use the easel?
Can you see everything?
I can see everything, yes, thank you.
As long as you
Yes.
have- Can we hit the light just a little bit? Mr. Fredericks, I'm showing you now 123, 124. I'll hold it for you. Tell the court what we're looking at.
This is a disc. One, 123 is my report, written report. 124, excuse me, is a disc.
Okay, and the label is what on the envelope?
It says Fredericks report.
Okay, which is a digital format of what 123 is.
Correct.
And will that be what you are showing to the jury?
Embedded in the electronic version of that report are these exhibits.
Yes.
But I would, once this is shown, I suggest we put these exhibits onto a thumb drive and then admit that.
Okay. Can we do that, Judge?
Any objection? No objection. All right, you want the video to be admitted as 120, the disc to be admitted as 124. Any objection to 124? No, Your Honor. And then the report, 123 is, we're going to put that on a disc. Is that
No.
on a on a drive?
No,
Thumb
sir.
drive. Okay, we're going to put the disc on a
Yes,
on a
sir.
thumb drive. No problem then with substituting what disc on a thumb drive for preservation.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, that's fine.
Is it possible to brighten that screen?
We want to turn it to you a little more.
No, just brighten it up.
Brighten it.
You're right? It's a little dark.
I agree.
Perfect, thank you.
Can every viewer see the screen all right?
The first document is just a Google Earth view. This is part of my examination, so I understood the relationship between each of the areas that were covered by the camera and the surrounding area. So the first images, there is a slide number at the bottom. In case there's a question asked, I can refer to that slide number so it goes onto the record. And I'm at slide number 2, and I'm showing an aerial view of the specific area of interest. And slide 3 shows kind of an outline of that particular area of interest. The Carolina-based Parkway is identified at the end of the red arrow. Highway 544, Highway 814. Then Mill Pond Road, the Beech Tree Boat Landing on slide 8, the Siteworx camera location, an area at house at 7957 Highway 814 was a residential camera that has been referred to as 814. And then a home at 8786 Highway 814. So the area of interest. I've then on slide 13 going to focus on one isolated area. I'll make that a bit bigger so we can see a better image of the Siteworx camera area and the 814 camera. The path of the vehicle that I've examined, I examine it as it goes past 814, and then a short time later, within drive time, it goes past the Siteworx camera, and then sometime later, we see it go northbound on both cameras within the same time period, based on timing of the drive. So the images at 814 can be seen by examining the position of the camera. So at slide 22, the position of the camera is located on the far right corner of the home, looking in the direction depicted by the blue overlay. And this is the perspective on the top left corner of camera 1. Camera 2 depicts a slightly different area of the roadway from its camera position, which is just at the back of the home looking over the driveway toward the roadway. And so this shows that there is an area that is not captured by the two cameras. There's no overlay, so there's just a second or two when vehicles are driving left and right that they would appear in both views based on the direction of travel. Then looking at the Siteworx camera, again, as depicted earlier, the perspective of one of the camera at the Siteworx from one corner over the parking lot to the roadway. The area of visibility is depicted in the blue area on slide 29. Then the secondary camera view on camera 2 looks directly out onto the roadway, and we can see the overlay depicted within the overlay of the colored areas on slide 30. So 31, again, the path of the vehicle shows the relationship. And so what the examination that I did at that point then was to determine what the offsets were between the camera timings, to show that when a vehicle moves left to right on 814, a certain period of time later, consistent with the distance of travel, that vehicle would appear then on the Siteworx camera if it went that direction. And so what I did is I was able to track the movement of a question vehicle that was the same vehicle going past the 814, past Siteworx, and then sometime later, the same vehicle went the other direction past Siteworx, and in the expected period of time then appeared going right to left on 814. And that's what that document it was used for me to understand what the relationship was between the two areas, and then to do my measurement of examination and timing and time offset.
Now, show us a little bit, that was the area you looked at, those were the two cameras. Show us a little bit about what you did next to come to your ultimate determination.
So at that point, then I wanted to create a record of the movement of both vehicles. So I've got a number of quick exhibits here that start. This one is called Question Vehicle, QV is Question Vehicle, Camera 1 South on Highway 814. This on-camera timestamp showed 04:44:59. The real time, according to the recovery report, was 03:35, and it was on December the 18th, 2013, and it shows the movement of a vehicle starting at slide 4, going southbound. And I'm just going to step through the slides. And the vehicle goes off-screen at slide 42. And that was on-screen timestamp. Again, we have an offset of 04:45:04. And now the next video shows camera 2 starting at 05:45:04. And we see the headlights of that vehicle come into view, and then that vehicle continues past the camera. Then we have the question vehicle at camera 1 south on Mill Pond Road, so this is the secondary location. This camera view at 03:39:06. And we can see a vehicle moving, continuing southbound. And then it goes out of view at let's go backwards here, at 03:39:10. And then 03:46:05, a vehicle returning. And then I have camera 5, so the camera that looks straight out from that facility at the same time. The vehicle is going left to right. So that's the same vehicle we just viewed, just from a different angle. Number 6 is camera 1 north on Mill Pond. So I think we just looked at this. This was just at 03:46:05. And then from camera 5, the same vehicle at the same time. And then a few minutes later, we have in real time at 03:45. We're now back to the 814 address, and we see the same vehicle moving northbound. And then slide number 9 is then the camera 1 at the same time, just from a different perspective, seeing that vehicle continue northbound. I then conducted a comparison of the southbound question vehicle versus the known vehicle, and this comparison was done with the recreation. So this exhibit on slide 2 has an annotation that says recreation, known vehicle, on February the 24th, 2014. And then a magnified view of the same exact area with the question vehicle that was recorded to 814 at 12/18/2013. So there's just a couple months between them. The police recreation video is on the right-hand side, and then the movement of the known vehicle is on the bottom left-hand side. So we kind of have the two images side by side and then the comparison up top. So as I move through these images, I'm making observations on slide 11 of a number of reflective lights on the vehicle. And this is the known vehicle that the police were using for the drive-by. And the slide 12 shows the same reflection on the questioned vehicle. I'm also looking at pools of brightness and darkness. So where the headlight diffuses, where the reflection becomes more intense, and then tracking that diffusion over the roadway, including the distance and the relationship between the trees and all the other objects on the road. So we can see the diffusion in a number of different areas. On slide 14, I pointed to one just past some trees further ahead on the vehicle. There's a little dark kind of inset area where there's more darkness. And these areas of reflection and darkness are caused by the bulbs in the HID lights of the known vehicle, and where the bulbs are placed, how far in or out the bulbs are from the lens, any humidity issues within the lens, any damage that would have been in the area of the lens. As vehicles are on the road longer, they are susceptible to hitting a speed bump or hitting something in the roadway, and the bulbs will slightly shift. It also results in how the headlight is actually placed into the car by a human, not by a tool, and the vehicles have to have their headlights canted to the right to avoid glare. So that the requirements for having vehicles on the roadway in North America is that the vehicles have to be, there's a little screw and a tool that moves them to the right a certain amount. When I do this work in the UK, where they drive on the left-hand side of the road, vehicles even manufactured, in areas where they have left-hand drives or right-hand drives, the vehicle still has to have their headlights canted before they're sold. When I do this kind of work in the Cayman Islands, where they bring in vehicles both from the United States and Japan, where in Japan they drive on the left-hand side of the road, so when they land in the Cayman Islands, somebody has to physically tilt their headlights to the left, and if they're manufactured in the United States, someone has to go there and tilt them to the right. So when I do comparisons, I've done a lot of comparisons in the Cayman Islands as one area. They're unique because when you look at the camera views, I can tell right away that a car is manufactured in the United States or in Japan, because oftentimes they're canted the wrong way because they don't do their due diligence. So very often the vehicles will have a cant to the right, they're North American, have a cant to the left, they're from Japan. So this is why we can see these areas of diffusion, but the fact that they sit exactly in the same spot in these comparison images. So as the vehicle moves forward, now I've gone to slide 16, 17, as we move forward, we can see now that even the rear of the vehicle, we're looking at the reflection now off of the bumper of the car, the amount of light, the brightness and intensity of the light is the same. So the light source, the features that are being reflected are in the same location. Again, we're now in slide 20. We're looking at the diffusion, the brightness of the vehicle. There's little pools of brightness that we can detect and and observe. As this vehicle continues through the field of view past the trees, on slide 29 now, I can compare the distance, approximate distance of where the brightness areas are in front of the vehicle. So this is the forward-facing reflection of the vehicle. There's also this kind of this cloudy sort of brightness diffusion with a sudden stop where it gets darker, followed by, you can see kind of underneath the top of that right-hand arrow, there's another kind of pool of light. So we're almost looking at clouds and how the diffusion strikes the roadway and how it reflects off of the roadway in that particular area. And the things that would affect the reflection could be the surface. So is one particular area of the ground that the same light strikes, where you might have some road work repairs done, where the road itself might be a different color, different reflective values, the fact that they reflect the same in all areas is something that is notable. And then as the vehicle moves down the roadway, we can see the reflection being diminished on the left side, because on the right side we have the wraparound light that's facing more of the camera, so more of the light is reflecting more directly into the camera, and so it would have a different shape. And then on the left-hand side, the less of the light is reflecting toward the camera, so it would be diminished, and it's diminished in the same way. The location of the area where we would have a license plate and the diffusion of that and the relationship between the other lights of where that license plate is, again, is something that would be evaluated. That's a reflection off of the vehicle, and their light is reflecting in the same manner. And we can see how the lights change their reflection as they move down the roadway and become a little bit more visible to the camera, and yet the license plate diminishes slightly. And it's diminishing exactly the same way as it moves down the roadway from the camera. I have an exhibit number 11, which is just a video that shows the questioned vehicle and the known vehicle moving southbound. And I'll just open that up. And that's just a video of what we just looked at without the annotations and observations. So that's just the video movement, and they're synchronized to the best that they can be given the recording. Number 12 is the questioned vehicle and the known vehicle comparison on the mill pond. And this is south. And as I move through the exhibits, we see the slides, we see the lead light beam, which is moving southbound. We can see how it strikes the posts as it's moving down the roadway. And we can see the beam edge. So on slide 21 to 22, I'm going back and forth. We can just see how the edge is striking the roadway and the reflection off of the fence in the background. They move at the same manner. Their reflection is the same. The edge pattern on the side of the roadway is the same. So as I move forward now, we can begin to see the dark area in the same positions. Go back and forth between 27, 28. You can see how those reflective disbursement of the light and the edges of that disbursement are the same. And as I'm moving forward now to slide 32, we can see, again, the top, excuse me, the top of the image is the known vehicle, pardon me, the questioned vehicle. The bottom image is the vehicle used by the police, the known vehicle. So slide 34 is pointing out the small reflective light under the headlight. And then on slide 35, I'm looking at the intensity of the beam. These are the same features, the same intensity, the same direction as we saw on 814. So the same reflective features on the vehicle that appeared just a few minutes earlier on 814 are now appearing in this view. As I move forward, then we can make the same observations that we did in 814. We're looking at the overall beam location, shape, intensity. And likewise, the rear of the vehicle on slides 46 and 47, we see the same things, the wraparound rear tail light, the relationship to the area of the license plate, and the fact that the left rear tail light is diminished because it is obviously facing away from the camera, whereas the other right light is facing toward the camera. And then as we move forward, we can make observations that the same features of the headlights, the same dark areas remain in the same area. As we go through here, we can continue to make observations of the rear light features and reflective features, and they remain the same. And then I have a number 13 is just a video that records that same observation. I'll just play it. Number 14 is now northbound on Mill Road, and we're going to take a look at establishing that the question vehicle is the top image, and it is coming from the full screen of that was depicted on the bottom left-hand corner. And then slide 4 shows that the known vehicle is the bottom right-hand and the middle view. So the known vehicle is the one that the police had in their custody and did this drive-by. So as I move forward through the slides, we can begin to make observations of the consistency in the vehicles. We can see on the left-hand side, we have that brighter area of reflection. This is the beam at the front of the vehicle. I've just noted here on slide 76 that the question vehicle leaving the area is driving faster now. So it's moving at a faster speed than it was on the way down. It's moving a bit faster than the test vehicle, just slightly. I've done a magnified view on slide 88 of the reflection of the front of the headlights, and this is impacted by some of the compression that has an impact on the accurate shape. So we've got more of a blocky shape than a blooming shape, and we can see that we can see the pattern of the lights. So what I've got is on slide 88. This is the magnified area of the question vehicle, and then on slide 89, I've brought in the image of the known vehicle used by police, and even given the compression, we can see the consistencies in the pattern. So how the reflection off the front of the vehicle is the same reflection area off of the bumpers and off of the headlights themselves. Likewise, on slide 145, I'm showing that as the vehicle continues down the roadway, the amount of reflection into the camera on the on the passenger side of the headlight is diminished because of the reflection, because of the canting to the right, because of the angle to the camera. So we're seeing the same features when they're in about the same positions. And in fact, we lose the right-hand headlight as it moves by at pretty much the same moment in time based on the reflection. So this would give us an idea of the contour of the front of the vehicle and how the right headlight would no longer be visible to the camera at exactly the same moment. And then we can now look at slides 21 through 22 and beyond, that we can see more of the reflection on the driver's side of the vehicle, and we can track the diffusion of the light and the edge pattern of that light, and they are identical. Number 15 is, again, a video copy without the annotations of what we just looked at. Number 16 is the comparison of the vehicle, that same vehicle, as it appears going by now northbound, same length of time between the camera views, comparing the police recreation with the questioned vehicle. So now we're looking still at the same vehicle, has all the same features, and the features are consistent. The reflection on the ground is consistent in each, including we have a reflection off of the roof because it's going underneath a light source that's a light standard on the street, and we can see that reflection off the vehicle is the same. We can see the beam pattern in front of the vehicle. The dark areas and the light areas are the same. Number 17 is a video record of the same without the annotations observed. And normally looking at this, we just go frame by frame through. Once those observations were made, I felt it was important to demonstrate to a trier of fact, to a judge or jury, how the patterns would look different if they were compared to vehicles that on this, when you're watching them on the roadway, oh, that looks like the same kind of vehicle. Could we compare those different vehicles to what we just looked at, and would we see any differences? And so we identified 11 vehicles that were similar or the same in class, and we did a process of doing that examination.
And if you don't mind, show this jury how you were able to eliminate vehicles of a different class.
So number 18 compares the known vehicle. So the difference with this vehicle, the known vehicle, the one that police had that they used the drive-by with, was once they finished their drive-by, they did other examinations that included the removal of the headlights. So once that was done, I could no longer do a headlight comparison with a known vehicle. But fortunately, that was done by the investigators already when they did their drive-by. So at this point, I'm only looking at the physical features and reflections off of the vehicle, because I could no longer do the headlights. So the rest of this bit is not considering the headlights. However, even though I'm not considering the headlights, even with this examination, we could see that every single headlight of every single vehicle we tested was different from each other. None were even similar. So as I go through this, number 18, I'm looking at the known vehicle now compared to a Chevrolet Silverado. And these are all, I believe, King cabs. So on January the 16th, I attended the scene and directed that the vehicles be placed in the same position from vehicle to vehicle. So what we did is I took the known vehicle, I had it placed in a unique position, and I had the tires marked so that every other vehicle, when we're in each position, this is called reverse projection position 1, all the vehicles were moved into reverse projection position 1 based on the positions of the tires and the reflective features of the vehicle. So this is a magnified view of the known vehicle on slide 4. This is the known vehicle. It's a limited edition Ford F-150, black in color. Then I had the Chevrolet Silverado placed in exactly the same position, and you can see that from a video perspective, the vehicle looks similar. From a, watching it drive down the roadway, there are a lot of similarities, but there are differences. So the tail light position, if I switch between slide 9 and 10, we can see the length of the vehicle is slightly different. The tail light looks different. The headlight looks significantly different. And the reflection off of the bumper looks different between the two vehicles, so the known to the questioned Silverado. Each of the positions of the vehicle, including when the known vehicle, it was being driven forward placed in a certain position on the roadway, call it reverse projection position number 2, and then we put the Silverado in that position to compare the features. And I'm going between slide 18 and 19, significant differences in headlight spread pattern, in placement of headlights, height of headlights, and shape of vehicle. So the reflections are all quite different. So as a result of that, I was able to say that the known vehicle can be distinguished from a Chevrolet Silverado King Cab black in color around the same years. Number 19 compared the known vehicle to a silver Chevrolet Silverado. And again, in reverse projection position 1, the known vehicle's position, which we've looked at, compared now to the silver Silverado, there is a reflection off of the vehicle because it's silver that we can detect. So there is some brightness off the vehicle, which shows that if the vehicle is not black, if it's silver in color, it can be defined. What this helps me know is that the known vehicle and the questioned vehicle are black, and that if there were any silver qualities to it, it would be detectable. So it helps me define and eliminate color from the questioned vehicle. Also, the headlight now from slide 9 to 10, or pardon me, the tail light, slide 9 to 10, we can see there are significant differences both in the length of the vehicle and in the reflective features. The shape position of the headlights between 12 and 13 are also significantly different. So we can see they reflect differently off the roadway. We can see the spread pattern on the roadway as it diffuses toward the front of the vehicle. Here is quite different. And again, the reflective features, I can see the examination of the compression is showing me, again, that if it's a black vehicle, there's not going to be the full reflective lighter features. So this compression based on the pixel format and the ability to detect reflection tells me that if the questioned vehicle were lighter in color, it would be detectable. Slides 18 through 20 were then comparing the position of the Chevrolet Silverado, the silver one, as it's placed in the same reverse projection position 2 as we did with the other vehicle. And then if we look at the different compression or reflection, we can see it. So between 22 and 23, where I am looking at the known vehicle to the Silverado test vehicle, we can see that it reflects heavily off of the upper reflective light because of how much reflective features and characteristics the silver vehicle has. We can also see the many differences between the headlight and, of course, the spread pattern on the roadway in front. Likewise, the shape of the taillight and the location of the taillight and the intensity of the reflection and shape is different. We can see, if you look at the two vehicles, the known vehicle has a much brighter wraparound light, much larger than the Silverado. So again, these vehicles were placed in the same position because their tires were marked on the roadway with chalk and they were placed in the same spot. Number 20, this is a comparison between the known vehicle and a Dodge Ram using the same features. So I'll go through these a little bit more quickly now. We can see that there are differences when I go between slide 9 and 10. Between a Dodge Ram 1500, even though the vehicle is of the same length, their headlight or taillight pattern is completely different, as is the headlight pattern between the two and the diffusion across the roadway with the beam. In reverse projection position 2, we have the same differences that we saw before, that they reflect differently under the light, and their headlight spread pattern is quite different. And of course, their tail lights are significantly different. If I just kind of go back and forth looking at the tail light for a moment. Here, that's just looking at the tail light, you can see how it's quite significantly different. This is reverse projection position number 3. And we can see the intensity of the front left headlight, reflection off of the roof, and the difference between the tail light. As a result of that, the Dodge Ram 1500 was also eliminated. 21 compares the known vehicle to a Dodge Ram Laramie 1500. Reverse projection position number 1. Again, the differences are easy to see, easy to measure, and easy to discuss. So the chrome bumper had more reflection. Reverse projection position 2, headlight spread pattern of the known vehicle. We can see the significant difference between the Ram. And these were all done under low beam conditions. And again, the tail lights, we can see the difference. The reason why the known vehicle and the question vehicle had a brighter rear tail light is simply because it's a wraparound, much bigger than the other vehicles, more light reflection. Number 22, comparing the known vehicle to a GMC Denali. Again, in reverse projection position 1, the rear lights are significantly different. The front lights, headlights are completely different, and the reflection off the roadway is completely different. In reverse projection position 2, the position of the headlights, the height of the headlights, the shape of the right headlight, completely different. And again, the tail lights are completely different as a result of that. That vehicle was also, and that class of vehicle could also be eliminated. The known vehicle compared to the Ford F-150, 4x4. So now we're at the same make model. This one is red in color. And doing the comparisons of a vehicle that, apart from color, looks indiscernible, we can see that there's a significant difference in the headlight spread pattern. When I go between slides 9 and 10. And then looking at the front of the vehicle and the headlight spread pattern, again, vehicle of the same class with the same HID headlights, the headlight spread pattern is quite different. Number 24, now also looking at a Ford F-150 King Ranch. In reverse projection position 1, this is a black King Ranch, and we can look at the headlight spread pattern, again, different. Reverse projection position 2, we can see differences in the headlight spread pattern. So these are vehicles of the same make, model, or same make, very, very similar model, same headlights, but different appearance on the roadway. Number 25, a Ford F-150 Lariat Black. So very, very similar vehicle, same make, same manufacturer, same year, same kind of headlights, but the reflections and the disbursement is different. And on reverse projection position 2, same observations, slightly different tail light and the tail light is quite different. Reverse projection position 3, we can see differences. In this particular case, this vehicle had a covered box area, and that covered box area is reflected underneath the headlamp, the light. So the large area of the black cover reflects light, so we could eliminate any vehicle. We could say that the known vehicle and the question vehicle had no covering in the back, so any vehicle like that could be eliminated. Now comparing the known vehicle to a Ford F-150 Lariat, red in color. And now this is just a different vehicle with the same kind of headlights. We can see that the headlight spread pattern is different, the reflection is different, even though it's the same, virtually the same make and the same headlights, their headlights are different. In reverse projection position 2, we can see a difference in the pattern of the headlight diffusion across the roadway and some differences in the reflection off of the front of the vehicle. Number 27, a Ford F-150 Platinum model. These features are getting very, very close to the same characteristics, make, model, year as the known vehicle. Same headlights, but we can see, again, diffusion, a difference in the positioning and diffusion and reflection on the roadway. Slides 14 to 15, again, shows the difference between the known vehicle and the vehicle with the same kind of headlights, same make, same years, King cab model. They reflect differently. Position number 3, again, the headlight spread pattern is quite different, as is the brightness of the headlights because they're canted slightly differently, more toward the camera. Number 28, known vehicle, Ford F-150 Limited. So this is the same make, model, year of vehicle with the same headlights, and we can see that the headlight spread pattern, even from the same make, model, and year, is different. The reflective areas when they're looking directly at the vehicle, the position, location of the rear tail light, the position of the headlights, the reflection off the vehicle itself, not including the pattern, is the same. And that's what we would expect to be because it's the same make, model, and year. So if I go back and forth, there's really no discernible difference between the reflections off the vehicle itself, but it's the pattern on the roadway that is different.
So this vehicle is identical when you look at it to the defendant's truck?
It's the same make, model, and year. Yes, it's identical.
Okay, but then when we see the comparison, we see that indeed there is a different headlight spread pattern.
Correct.
Even though it's the same year, Ford 150 Limited.
Yes, NHID headlights. This is now, I've done a number of observations here with the questioned vehicle with the silver, the Chevrolet Silverado. So now I've taken the historic images of the questioned vehicle to compare those. And as we look through the Silverado comparisons, the Silverado vehicle can be eliminated. So this is the actual question vehicle, and we look at the Silverado vehicle between slides 7 and 8. We can see that they are different in every way. All the reflections off the vehicle is different, the headlight spread pattern is different. So the Silverado can be eliminated as a result of that, and in reverse projection 2, the same observations. It's not the same vehicle, no features are consistent. The same test was done between the questioned vehicle and the Chevrolet Silverado black in color. And again, the features of the vehicle are completely different and the headlight spread pattern is significantly different. Excuse me. As a result of that, a Chevrolet Silverado black in color can be eliminated as being the question vehicle. Then comparing the question vehicle to the GMC Denali, black in color, we can see that none of the reflective features are the same, none of the headlight spread pattern characteristics are the same. So as a result of that, the GMC Denali can be eliminated as being the question vehicle. Now comparing the question vehicle to a Ford Ram 1500, the features, the length of the vehicle, the physical features of the vehicle, the headlight spread pattern, and the headlight positioning, and all of the reverse projection positions can demonstrate that there are differences in every aspect. So as a result of that, the Dodge Ram 1500 is eliminated as being the question vehicle. Comparing the question vehicle to a Dodge Ram 1500 Laramie, as with all the other vehicles, the Laramie has different characteristics of all the reflective patterns off of both the rear and front of the vehicle, and the headlight spread pattern is different in each of the comparison positions. As a result of that test, the Dodge Ram Laramie is eliminated as being the question vehicle. Then comparing now the question vehicle to a King Ranch. This is the Ford F-150 King Ranch. So same manufacturer, very similar vehicle with similar headlights. The shape of the lights is slightly different, and the reflection off the roadway is different. And again, looking at the question vehicle to the King Ranch, the reflection off the roadway is not consistent. It's different. As a result of that, that particular vehicle can be eliminated due to headlight spread pattern analysis. Number 35, compared the question vehicle to a Ford F-150 Platinum, which again is very, very similar to the known vehicle. The question vehicle and that Ford F-150 Platinum can be eliminated, primarily due to the reflective pattern on the roadway and the reflection, some of the reflection off of the vehicle itself. And this particular one has a grille. The grille is reflective, and there'd be no, as a result of that, we can know that the question vehicle does not have a grille, because that it would be reflective, a reflective chrome grille. So we're narrowing the characteristics of the question vehicle by using vehicles of the same make, model, year, but with slightly different characteristics. One with a chrome grille to see is it consistent? And we can see that the chrome grille is visible under these light conditions, so we can know that that is not a feature of our question vehicle.
So this idea that every black four-door truck, 150, looks identical, you have basically eliminated that as a possibility.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So the idea that every four-door black truck looks identical on a surveillance camera, for this jury, you have now eliminated that is not possible.
That is not possible. Correct. So number 36, again, the question vehicle compared to the Ford F-150 Lariat, red in color. We tried to be exhaustive with this examination just to make sure that there were any features that could possibly show some inconsistencies that would allow me to eliminate the question vehicle as being the known vehicle. So we're looking for any characteristics, any manufacturing features that would reflect light that I could see, and then compare that to the known to say, oh, I can eliminate the known vehicle from being the question vehicle. And that's kind of the goal. Right. And I'm going through this exercise to do that. So this next one is just a comparison with the question vehicle to a Ford F-150, now black in color. So it's a very, very similar vehicle. And again, we can see the significant differences in the headlight spread pattern. The diffusion of the light is quite different, even though we have the same type of headlight, same shape of vehicle. And then reverse projection position number 2, again, we can see the diffusion of the light is quite different. that would eliminate that particular Ford F-150 Lariat, black in color, from being the questioned vehicle. Now the questioned vehicle compared to a Ford F-150, we just did the black one, I'm sorry, to now a Ford F-150 4x4, red in color. Again, the headlight spread pattern is quite different. Some of the reflective features on the questioned vehicle are different from this particular test vehicle, the Ford F-150 4x4. Now in reverse projection position 2, we can see again quite a difference between the headlight spread pattern. And as I went through these, all of the test vehicles had different spread patterns from each other, and they had different reflective characteristics. And then the last vehicle comparison was now the questioned vehicle to a vehicle of the same make, model, year, headlights, including the same color. So this is a limited Ford F-150 vehicle. So everything should be the same, but what's different about it is the headlight spread pattern. And one of the things that I considered in this examination is what's called motion blur. I'm just going to go back for a moment. Motion blur is a characteristic created by the speed of the object. So the camera takes in light over a period of time to create a picture. The longer the sample, the longer the camera is sampling light, then the more likely it is that there's going to be blur with an object that is in motion. The faster the object's in motion, the longer the blur is going to be. So in this particular case, the question vehicle is in motion past the camera, so it has, the light is blurred. The test vehicles were stationary, so we're not going to get blur. But we can measure the length of the blur. That can be measured in pixels. And we can see that as a result of that measurement, we can still see the comparison in the lights. So I don't look at the image on slide 7, look at the rear tail light, and then the image on light 8 and say there's a difference between the tail lights. There appears to be a difference, but this is one of the considerations that I would apply. I measure the blur and say, no, that difference is simply because of motion, not because of actual differences. So those are all the considerations in doing these comparisons that I looked at. The test vehicles that the police used were in motion, so all the blur that applied was identical in both.
Let me ask you something. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then again, just finishing this off, same make, model, year of vehicle, we can see the differences in the headlight spread pattern in each of the each of the images, and of course we have the reflective rear box cover that we saw on the previous examination to see that it reflected differently. So those were the comparison of the vehicles. There were some features inside the vehicle that I also compared.
Now, let me ask you something. So you were able, after this, to determine?
At this point, let's take a break. Okay. There's a stopping point. Jury, take a break and go to the jury room. We're not beginning deliberations. No discussion, please. We'll be with you in about 10 minutes.
Nancy, I've got 5 other exhibits to include on that.
That's fine. I hated to break you, but I just...
No, you're fine.
We were about 2 hours into this. So.
No, I understand.
Okay. Anything from the state before we recess?
No, sir, we're going to put that on that drive?
That's fine.
Okay.
You okay with that too?
Yes.
Okay. Anything from defendant?
No.
We'll be at ease for about 10 minutes. Thank you.